What's going on, guys? AM here, back with another video. I know it's been a long time. I'm sorry about that, but you don't care about that. You just care that it's here. Major 4 is finally here, the last major of the season. This tournament is at DreamHack, which will be starting here in about 11 hours from the time of recording this video. And I'm super excited. Like I said, it's the last major of the year, so there are a lot of different champs probabilities. There's only been 4 spots locked up so far, so there's a lot that could go wrong or can go right in this tournament. But I don't want to talk too much about it. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And here we have the bracket. We're just going to go from top to bottom and we'll just jump right in. First matchup, winners round 1, Miami Heretics versus the Minnesota Rocker. And on the season, Minnesota leads the series 2-1. Their last matchup was Major 3 qualifiers, which Miami won in a 3-1 fashion. And looking over this last major, they are very even in hardpoint and controls. If Minnesota wants to go far in this tournament, then they need to win this matchup right here in 4. And Minnesota has a habit of taking every game to map 5, but I don't think they can win it map 5. Miami's S&D looks way too good for Minnesota to take it map 5. Miami is 7-0 this major. So with that being said, I think Miami is most likely to win it in a 3-2 fashion. And they have a 22% chance of winning 3-2, but they're a 58% chance of winning it. And with this victory, Miami Heretics will clinch champs and a top 7 seed. Now, Minnesota is currently placed at number 9, so they are just below. I think they're only 40 points behind Optics, so they have a long way to go in order to make champs. But the next matchup is Thieves versus Surge. And on the season, Thieves have a 5-0. They're 5-0. They're undefeated on Surge on the year with 5 matchups. And the last matchup was the last major grand finals in which Thieves swept the Surge. I'm going to be honest, I was busy that day. I didn't watch it, but I didn't even want to go back and watch it. It was 4-0. And before that, it was earlier in Major 3, and that was when Vancouver, I'm going to say Seattle a couple times, bear with me. Vancouver went up 2-0, but then ended up losing. With that being said, I have Thieves taking it. They have a 56% chance to win, and they are most likely to win it 3-2, and that's at 19%. And with this, Thieves clinch a top 2 seed, and now Toronto can no longer has a chance at placing number 1. That takes us to the next matchup, FaZe versus Cloud9. And Atlanta leads the series 4-1, and as a matter of fact, the only loss that New York has was this last major, in which New York won 3-1. And over this entire split, FaZe's hardpoint has been looking bad. It's been looking bad for the last couple majors total. So I think this tournament, they will live and die by hardpoint. They are 3-4 this major so far. In order for New York to have a chance, they need to get to map 5. And to do so, New York is the only team to beat Atlanta on control this split. So I think if they win map 2 and win map 3, New York does have a chance to win in 5. However, I think Atlanta has a 71% chance to win it, and they will win it 3-1, and there is a 25% chance of them winning 3-1. And with that win, Atlanta clinches number 2, and now Toronto can no longer place number 2. That takes us to Toronto versus Texas, winners round 1. This is the Mercules Bowl. It is the first matchup with on land after dropping Mercules. And the last matchup was the Major 4 qualifiers, literally this last weekend. It was on, I think that was Sunday. Yeah, Texas won it, or Optic won it 3-0. And so this is first matchup on land after dropping Mercules. And even though they got smoked this last week, I think Toronto's going to come back and win it 3-1 fashion. Toronto has a 54% chance of winning and a 18% chance of winning in a 3-1 fashion. This could go either way, and with this win for Toronto, there are absolutely no champs changes. That takes us to elimination bracket, the elimination round number 1, in which is Boston versus Minnesota, and this is do or die time for Minnesota. Like I said, they're placed number 9, and they need to win, and they need Optic to lose later on. They need to win this or go home. And so I love an underdog story. I love a champs run. I think that would be great. So I'm going to be cheering for Minnesota. But unfortunately, I have to pick Boston to win it. They have a 54% chance of winning it. And most likely is 20%. A 20% chance of a 3-1 victory. And that means that Minnesota will unfortunately be eliminated from champs. And the next matchup is Vancouver versus Vegas. And I believe this is the first time Vegas has played on land with this roster. I think so. I can't remember if that change happened before the last major or not. But last matchup versus Vancouver was in the Major 3 qualifiers. Vancouver leads on the season 2-0. And the last matchup was Major 3, in which Vancouver 3-0'd them. Vegas has nothing to lose, which could make them dangerous. I could see a very big upset potential here. However, I don't think that's happening. I just think this could happen. However, I've got Vancouver winning it. They have an 86% chance to win and a 41% chance that's going to end 3-1. That will mean that all top 4 spots are now locked up with Vancouver taking the last one. And with that, because of that, Miami cannot place top 4. Now going into the next one, I've got New York versus LAG. Cloud9 versus LAG. So far in the season, it is tied 1-1, and both matches ended up being 3-0s. And the last matchup was a Major 2 qual, in which I believe New York won that. I didn't write that down, but New York won 3-0. LAG have nothing to play for. They've already been eliminated. So, but they did just beat Optic this last weekend as well. So they could make a run. However, I've got New York with the champ spot on the line. They have a 60% chance of winning and a 23% chance of winning it 3-2 fashion. And now that means that Minnesota, with them being eliminated, and New York winning this, New York has taken Minnesota's place and is now at number 9 spot, chasing Optic for that number 8 spot. Next matchup, speaking of Optic, is Optic versus Carolina Royal Ravens. And on the season, Carolina leads the series 3-1. And the last matchup was their only matchup in which it was the current looking Optic with Mercules, and Texas 3-0'd them. And Carolina has not been looking good recently. And at this time, both teams have not clinched. Texas is at the number 8 spot, and Carolina is at the number 6 spot. However, Carolina could be eliminated if a lot of things go in a certain way, especially with Cloud9 winning the match prior. And looking at the current form, like this whole major, it does not look like Carolina has a chance. And I believe it looks closer than it should be. But I have Texas with a 57% chance of winning it, and a 23% chance of ending in 23%. And because of that, Carolina is now on the chopping block. I know they have a lot of separation between New York, but their spot could be taken by New York. And Miami, because of Carolina losing, Miami then clinch a top 7 seed. That takes us to Elimination Round 2, in which Boston takes on Vancouver Surge. And Vancouver leads the series 4-1, and their last matchup was in the Major 4 qualifiers, which Vancouver 3-0'd them. In order for Boston to have a chance, I believe they need to get map 5. On the season, both teams are right around a 50-50 map 5. But unfortunately, I think Vancouver's respawns look too good. I have Vancouver with a 54% chance of winning and a 23% chance of winning 3-1, which is the most likely. And with New York winning and still alive, Boston still hasn't clinched champs, but they have a chance at 7th, 8th, or they could be eliminated by New York. Speaking of New York, that is the next matchup we will be looking at. Texas on the series. Optic, they lead the series 2-0, and the last matchup came up in Major 3, in which Texas 3-0'd Cloud9. Optic could be eliminated by New York, and New York, if New York wins here, that could really boost them, because I believe if New York wins here, all they have to do is make Sunday, and then Optic could be eliminated. Do I think it's going to happen? No. New York does not look good. I have Texas with a 63% chance of winning and a 22% chance of winning it 3-1. And with this victory, Texas will clinch their spot and Boston will clinch their spot. So that's all 8 spots taken up right now, being Thieves, FaZe, Heretics, Ultra, Surge, Optic, and Boston, and Carolina. So that's all 8 teams right there. And then we will jump back up to the winners bracket. And I forgot to write any notes on Thieves versus Miami. I have Thieves with a 55% chance or 56% chance of winning it and a 21% chance or 22% chance of taking it in a map 4. Yeah. So that's that. We'll move on to FaZe versus Ultra. FaZe is 2-1 versus Toronto. With the last matchup being all the way back at the start of Major 3, in which Ultra won it in a map 5. Do I think Toronto is a bad matchup versus FaZe? I don't think so. They're tied on map wins and losses. I have FaZe with a 56% chance of winning and Toronto with a 44% chance. And I think FaZe are going to win it 3-1. And that is a 20% chance of doing so. I think in order for Toronto to win this, they have to win it in 4. They can't get it to map 5. FaZe's S&D just looks too good right now for that. So that takes us back down to elimination, in which, we'll talk the Toronto versus Vancouver. And on the season, Vancouver leads the series 4-3, so it's a pretty even matchup. Their last matchup was in Major 4, in which the Major 4 qualifiers, so just a couple weeks ago, which Vancouver won 3-1. And this is probably the most even matchup of this tournament. Every game mode over this major split is even, or close to even. Toronto, however, I do have Toronto with a chance to win. They have a 52% chance, and they're most likely to win it 3-2 fashion, and that's a 21% chance. And with those, that will mean that Toronto clinches the number 3 seed, and Vancouver clinches the number 4 seed. That brings us into our next matchup, which probably has the most champs scenarios on the line right here. Miami versus Optic. And Miami is undefeated versus Optic on the year. Their last matchup was on the Major 3 qualifiers, in which Miami won 3-1. Their hard points look pretty even. S&D is dominated by Miami, and Control is dominated by Optic. So, I believe they could split hard points. It just comes down to who's going to win those S&Ds. And I have Miami winning the S&Ds, taking both of them. Miami has a 53% chance of winning, and I will remain undefeated versus Texas on the year with a 21% chance of winning in a 3-2. And with this matchup, that means that Texas will clinch the 8th seed, Boston will clinch the 7th seed, Carolina will clinch the 6th seed, and Miami will clinch the 5th seed. Going on to Championship Sunday, I can't speak right now. The first matchup being Toronto versus Miami. This is Miami's 3rd time making it to Sunday on the year. So this team is definitely a top 5 team. I wouldn't place them top 4. I think it just depends on the day, who they could win. But they definitely look like a serious team, especially with them being just the 3rd time making it to a Sunday this year. 3 out of 4 is going to be phenomenal. But unfortunately, Ultra does lead the series 1-3 or 3-1. And the last matchup was the same exact scenario. It was the top 4 matchup on Sunday in Major 3. Unfortunately for Miami, I have the same outcome. I have 3-1, which is a 20% chance of that happening, and Toronto has a 52% chance of winning this one. So honestly, the matches so far have been almost flip a coin rather than some of the New York matches. Of course, Vegas, and the matches look like they're going to be great today. And that takes us to winners finals. Thieves versus FaZe, which is probably the best matchup on the year. But unfortunately for the Thieves, Atlanta leads the series 4-1. Their last matchup, Thieves 3-0'd them in week 1 of Major 4 in a dominant fashion. It wasn't even close on any of the maps. And the only time that the Thieves won this year was in week 1 of the Call of Duty season. So it's been a long time. I do have this matchup very even once again. I have FaZe winning it 3-2. They have a 51% chance of winning it. Most likely score is 3-2 at a 21% chance. And this matchup has no impact on champs yet. And that takes us down to the elimination finals. Toronto Ultra versus Los Angeles Thieves. And on the season, Ultra leads the series 2-1, so they've only played 3 times. Their last matchup was the Major 3 qualifiers, which Toronto won in a 3-1 fashion. The last LAN matchup was Major 2, in which Toronto won 3-0, and I believe that was a top 4 matchup then as well. And even though Toronto leads the series 2-1, I have Thieves with a 55% chance to win, and the most likely score is a 3-1 and 20%. I believe this one's going to be a pretty fast match. It'll just be Thieves saying, get us back into the grand finals. We need to go back at FaZe. And at this point in the series, we just talked about the matchup. At this point, FaZe will be leading 5-1. I believe that Thieves might have a mental block versus FaZe. And this is the grand finals that I've been predicting for a while. If you asked me last week in a best of 7 who would win it, I think it would be a coin toss. I literally did a mock bracket last week before the matchups, and it was like FaZe had a 50.05% chance of winning, and Thieves had a 49.95% chance. It was so close. But unfortunately, with the dominance that we've seen FaZe over the last couple weeks, minus the loss versus New York, the difference is much larger, especially since FaZe just beat Thieves this qualifiers. So I think FaZe has a 56% chance of winning, and the most likely score would be 4-3. I think in order for Thieves to win this, they have to basically sweep every respawn. If they even let one control slip away, then I think FaZe can win it. With that being said, that makes FaZe a 3-time champion on the year, and gives them the number 1 seed going into champs. And speaking of champs, here is where the bracket will be left off. There are 4 teams missing, being Vegas, Gorillas, Gentlemates, Minnesota, and New York. So these would be the matchups if all goes according to plan. We got FaZe versus Optic, Surge versus Heretics, Thieves versus Breach, Ultra versus Ravens. And this is it. It's all coming down to the wire. It has been, honestly, probably the most fun CDL season, other than watching Vegas and Gorillas. But going back to Cold War, like, this season was a lot of fun to watch, and it's almost over. So be on the lookout for a champs video coming up here soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It has been a great time, and I will guys see you all in the morning.